Well, good morning and welcome to Greer Chamber Live. And I just want to thank Swati Patel for joining us today from the South Carolina Chamber of Commerce in Columbia. And Swati is the Executive Vice President for Public Policy and Communications of Council, as well as the President for the South Carolina Chamber Foundation. And today we're just going to have a conversation about all the great things that are being sent to chamber members as well as business in general during the time of COVID-19. I know my emails are flooded, but in a really positive, a timely manner. In fact, I received, I think, 2 yesterday, and each time we receive information, it's updating previous days or updating previous weeks of all the legislation that's being passed to help out our business community, as well as information that helps us find out what businesses are essential, non-essential, and so on and so forth. So I just want to thank you so much for joining us today and this morning. And I'm just going to turn it over to you if you want to do a quick introduction, and then I'll start with that first question.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. This is my first Zoom call, so you have to forgive me if I don't do it exactly right. I'll have to look into the camera properly. Yeah, so we here at the South Carolina State Chamber, we serve as a resource to our local chambers. We're happy to do that. In addition, obviously, to our membership, we have a very diverse group of members from all different industry sectors, similar to, I'm sure, many of our local chambers. And so what we've been doing, at the chamber since the COVID-19 crisis began, really about 3-4 weeks ago, although it feels much longer, is trying to keep our membership and our chambers up to speed on really everything that's happening at lightning speed in Congress, at the state level. And so we know it's hard to keep up with all of that detail and information and how it impacts businesses. So our focus has really been cutting through a lot of that clutter and distilling it down to things that businesses really care about. And so that's what we've been trying to do pretty much every day. We send out communications, like David said, hopefully not too much, it's not flooding your inboxes, but at least once a day, we get that information and give it to our membership and to our chambers. And hopefully it's been helpful to them, as we continue to kind of see the ever-changing business climate in our state. So I'm happy to be here and look forward to answering your questions.
Oh, great. And no, the emails for sure are not flooding there's not too many. That information is vital. We do share it with our chamber membership. We do also post quite a bit of it on our website just to kind of keep up to date and up to speed. So keep sending that. It's really, really helpful. With that, we had a brief discussion yesterday, and part of that discussion, we talked a little bit about a survey that you had sent out from the South Carolina Chamber, and I didn't know if you wanted to discuss some of the issues and some of the comments that we received back from that survey.
Yes, I'd be happy to. Thanks, David. So last week we issued a survey to our membership just to get sort of an understanding of where businesses are in their current status, and then how they are reacting to and feeling about state and federal actions so far. So we only opened the survey for 5 days, which is not very long, but we did have very good participation, and we had it in all industry sectors. So that was really important to us. Normally what we do with our surveys is we share them with the governor's office, Department of Commerce, and legislative leadership, so they can also get a feel for what businesses are dealing with right now. So the industry sectors that we survey are agribusiness, business and professional services, insurance, real estate, construction, financial services, health services, hospitality, retail, manufacturing, transportation, and utilities. And so we ask our respondents to make sure that they let us know which sector that they are in. And so for this survey, the most responses we got back from are in the manufacturing sector and in the business, professional, insurance, real estate, construction sectors as a whole. We also got some good feedback from hospitality and retail. And so the questions that we asked, we said, is your business still open and operating? And so our respondents said overwhelmingly that yes, they are. 56% are still open and operating. 25% said that they are partially open, and 13% said that they are closed. We asked the question, have you or do you plan to furlough or lay off employees? The answers to that were also pretty positive, I think right now at least. We had almost 50% said no to that question, and 27% said yes. We do think that, though, if you look at the sectors again, the majority of the responses we got back were in business, but construction, real estate, and manufacturing. So if we probably had more respondents from the hospitality sector, I think that number would have been significantly higher. Another question we asked is, do you think the actions of the federal government have put us on the right track or the wrong track? So we had overwhelming support from our federal actions so far. 60% said that they believe the federal government has put us on the right track. We asked the same question about actions at the state level. Excuse me. And again, we had an overwhelming response, supportive, and that about 60% again said that they support state actions. In terms of the different types of information our membership is looking for, we asked, do you want to hear more from us about the Families First Coronavirus Act, the CARES Act, which I'm sure you're familiar with, specifically small business loans, what's going on with state and local ordinances, and the definition of essential businesses. So we asked our membership, do you want to see more information on all of those different topics? And everyone wants to see information about everything. So obviously we didn't limit that response. I think the majority, though, are still very interested in the CARES Act. That's the act that included the Paycheck Protection Program. And so overwhelmingly, we have a lot of interest in that federal legislation, but really it's supportive across the board. Our businesses want to hear about all of these different programs to see if they can, get some benefit from it. So we asked so far, the Families First Coronavirus Relief Act, that's the one that requires employers with less than 500 employees to pay up to 12 weeks of paid sick leave, family and medical leave in certain circumstances. And of course, those businesses would get 100% tax credit for cost of those leave payments. So we asked our folks if they had already started to take advantage of this program, and which went into effect April 1st. So far, only 23% have taken advantage. The 40% have not. And again, I know a lot of reasons for that. I'm sure you guys have heard. Now, when it comes to small businesses, they have a liquidity issue. Trying to pay that kind of leave out on the front end is difficult, and waiting on that tax credit on the back end is not something that they can do. So I'm not sure how much benefit we're going to see of this particular program for our small businesses, but we'll see again. Obviously the program went into effect April 1st, and so maybe in another month we'll see different numbers there. Next question was about the CARES Act. So we asked again if our businesses are interested in taking advantage of the Paycheck Protection Program, which was, went into effect technically on Friday, but as I'm sure you've all read, it's hit a number of challenges with so much interest in the program, and banks having to deal with a lot of issues trying to get ready for it. And so our membership overwhelmingly supports the Paycheck Protection Program and are interested in applying for it. So we had about 50% already said yes, that are going to apply. And we had another about 25 so that they're looking into applying. So again, that's one of those programs that I think we're going to see probably need to expand. And we know, if you've seen in the last couple of days, Congress is looking to potentially add another $250 billion to this program as soon as by the end of this week. So, and we can talk more about that later. So the question about whether Governor McMaster should issue a stay-at-home order and require only essential businesses to operate. We asked that question, and over 58% said yes, he should issue a stay-at-home order so long as essential businesses can continue to operate. So I was a little surprised to see how high that number was. But again, obviously almost every other state out there has already issued a stay-at-home order. So I think maybe people just expected that it was going to happen. But our membership has actually been pretty vocal about making sure it's done in a way that they can still operate at some level. And so again, we can go into a lot more detail about those orders here in a minute. And that's actually it for the survey. Again, we got some really good information, shared it with our leadership here at the state capitol. Hopefully it was helpful to them as well. If y'all have any questions about it, let me know.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I really appreciate that. And I did send out a chat to the group. If you do have questions, just feel free to send them on the chat and I'll be happy to pass those along. One of the things, so yesterday we had an opportunity to speak to, this is awful, I can't remember. It was the South Carolina hospitality. Help me out there, Nikki.
The Parks, Recreation, Tourism.
Nope, it was the other one.
The South Carolina Restaurant and Lodging Association.
Yes.
Oh, right.
Yes, and they said basically what you've been talking about, and I'm shocked during the survey that wasn't that they didn't respond more. But areas like Myrtle Beach, they're shut down. They're struggling right now to find their mark and how they're going to survive and kind of take on that next role. The bounce back probably would be great, but right now today there's a lot of staff had to be either furloughed or laid off at this time. So they're hopeful that that'll bounce back, but it is taking a hit on those small businesses. And sending out those surveys is great data. It gets really good information. Is that going to be something that we'll be able to have access to?
I think so. Yeah, we'll compile it in a way that it's something that you guys can use.
Excellent, very good. And that's something. When you talk about manufacturing, obviously the upstate we're heavy manufacturing, and then of course the greater Greer area has a number of manufacturers in there. And that essential, the governor's, what the governor, his orders, his essential orders that he put out, whether it's the business is essential or non-essential, it does impact the community. And there's quite a few that are trying to make sure that they are essential. And are you getting those types of questions? And if so, what do those questions look like to say, hey, I'm not in one of these categories, but are we essential, and what makes us essential? I don't know if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, and let me run down, if you don't mind, a couple of points in the executive orders kind of to give you some context.
Sure.
So 4 executive orders have been issued by the governor since last week that impact closures of businesses. And so the first 3 related to closing certain non-essential businesses. And those businesses, I'm sure y'all saw, and I'll kind of see if I can pull through, but the categories of those businesses were entertainment venues and facilities, recreational and athletic facilities and activities, and close contact service providers like barbershops and hair salons. And so there's a list of very specific businesses under each of those categories that must be closed. And that date was back, I think, last week. And so there aren't a lot of exceptions for those categories of businesses because, again, those are your real big public venues, your close contacts, your recreational athletic facilities. And so there aren't a lot of exemptions for those types of businesses. However, in the governor's executive order, he did create a process where a business that's not sure can file an email request to the Department of Commerce or call them, and they will give you an answer within 24 hours to let you know if you might be able to get an exemption or get a clarification. And we have gotten many of those calls to help them figure that out. Not so much with this list. Again, this was the first one, but with the second one. And so the second executive order was issued on Friday, and I'll go through that one. So that one is the one that involved really retail stores. So your department stores, furniture stores, jewelry, sporting goods, florist. And so that one, there was probably a little bit more flexibility, if you will. So the way the order reads is it says, effective on Monday of this week, these businesses must close, but the order did not prohibit any of these operations to close for deliveries, for online purchasing, for curbside purchases. So, there's a gray area there. So if you're a department store and you want to continue doing business but do it at curbside, then there's a way for you to do that. We got a request from a store, a large chain store actually, that wanted to be able to open by appointment only. And it kind of made sense for that type of store. And so the governor's office or the Department of Commerce, when they put the request in, granted their request. So they've been pretty, flexible and liberal in how they're interpreting it. So if there is a business that is in your area or your business that you're kind of unsure, then there's a good chance that you might actually get an exemption. So those were the first two orders. And again, one other piece of that second order, excuse me, that I mentioned, it also related to closing hotels, Airbnbs, short-term rentals, basically, to visitors from those hotspot states and areas. And again, the hotspot states is kind of a CDC term of art. It's on their website. These are the areas that we don't want people to go to right now. New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, New Orleans, but that list grows. And so the order also said, you basically look at those hotspot areas, on that given day, and those types of rentals and hotel operations that are still allowed to operate, they're required to restrict that kind of, reservation, basically. So that was a piece of one of those orders. One other thing, too, that's really important, at least for our membership that was in that order, is the term critical infrastructure essential services. So this is something that the Department of Homeland Security's, it's called CISA, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, which is an agency I'd never heard of until literally like this month or last month. But they have been putting together guidelines for industries across the country that spell out very clearly what types of critical infrastructure should be intact today and should be operating today. And that list gets updated almost every week. And so the executive order I'm talking about also gave a broad exemption for all of those types of industries to continue operating. And that's super important for a lot of different reasons. But, our supply chains, we have to get, commercial transports into the state from all over the country for different supplies. And so, the first few weeks when this pandemic really was a crisis, all of these industries immediately went to the White House and to Congress and said, and to the Department of Homeland Security, say, please make sure we can continue to provide these supplies to our manufacturers and our industries around this country.
That's really good. No, that's a really good explanation. And I think we posted the actual executive order, but I'm also looking at another one right now, and it talks about the retail stores that are closed. But when you talk about critical infrastructure, can you give an example of critical infrastructure that would be essential?
Yeah, and it's become a little bit of a saying a business is essential or not is probably like not the right type of, I guess, term of art we want to use, because some of our businesses feel like, hey, we're essential to our customers, so it's not there's a little bit of a issue there with some businesses, because obviously we want all of our businesses to be able to operate. But a critical infrastructure, in order to have critical infrastructure in place, we have to have essential businesses continue to operate. And it's a very broad list, actually. And there are plenty of governors out there who have said, we pretty much exempted almost everything. So lots of businesses are still able to continue to operate. So is this really making impact? But we feel very strongly here at the Chamber, National Association of Manufacturers, lots of national groups feel like we have to have a broad types of industries continue to operate in all of their supply chains tied to it. And so obviously on the top of the list are healthcare professionals, then you get into the food services industries, then you get into production of different, manufacturing equipment. So those industries are exempt or on this critical industries list in a very broad way. And so, that list is got hundreds probably of different categories on it, to be honest with you. But but we do need them, right? We need our pharmaceutical industries operating. We need our manufacturers continuing to operate. And people still need household goods. So there are so many things involved with, from point A to point B to get those goods into the store for customers to still be able to get the essential things that they need.
Yep. No, that's great. And I'm looking at the list right now a little bit. One is caring for pets. So having those pet daycares probably is essential. I'm not quite sure how to drop those off yet, but I think that's it's vital. So no, I really appreciate you sharing that information. And again, to those members that are listening today, we do, as soon as we get that information, we update our website with those essential businesses. I think if there aren't any questions coming in, again, feel free to shoot me a question. But if you want to talk a little bit about the dollars that are coming into the state, I don't know if, how that works with the chamber. I know you guys have a pulse on that. The dollars coming into the state for that paycheck protection program that's out there. Are you seeing it chip away? I did hear from, on one of the news channels this morning, they were talking about that phase 4, where there may be more relief dollars put back into the economy. But I didn't know how in South Carolina are those dollars being sought after at a high level?
Yeah, happy to answer that question. And I realized I did not talk about the governor's actual stay-at-home order that became effective yesterday at 5 o'clock. If you want me to talk about that for like 2 minutes, I will.
That would be great. Yes.
Yeah, I apologize for that. So that's the 4th one, right? That's the 4th order that was issued and became effective yesterday at 5 o'clock. So this order really does not change anything as it relates to the closure of non-essential businesses. Those lists that I mentioned before, they are the same. The thing that really has changed with this new order is twofold. One is it mandates now that individuals only travel to those things that are considered an essential business, an essential activity, or this critical infrastructure issue that I mentioned already about the CISA essential services. And so, so that's important for our businesses to understand. Nothing really changed. However, for retail, any establishment that is a retail and not already deemed non-essential, those stores have to limit customers to no more than 5 customers per 1,000 square feet of space, or 20% of the occupancy limit, whichever is less. And so you are going to see a change, effective as of 5 o'clock yesterday. Trying to get into Target or your grocery store, you'll definitely see an impact there. And then in terms of those essential activities that individuals can continue to do, obviously caring for, visiting your family, getting care for your pets, for yourself, engaging in outdoor recreational activities, but using the 6 feet social distancing and attending religious services. Those are kind of on a handful of things that are on that list and something to be mindful of. However, another really important thing is no one in the state is required to carry any type of documentation or credential showing that they are going to an essential business or any kind of essential service. And so there was actually a memo issued today by our state law enforcement division to local law enforcement around the state, which we'll probably put in our email today, David, that explains exactly what local law enforcement really should be doing as a result of the stay-at-home order. So that's really important. And so I think that kind of covers the stay-at-home order. So going to the next question about the Paycheck Protection Program.
Yes.
So what we know right now about South Carolina is about 70 banks are open for business to process these types of loans. In terms of the amount of money that is being applied for right now, we don't have that data yet, but we are working with the South Carolina Bankers Association to try to get as much up-to-date information as we can. Our banks are pretty overwhelmed right now. A lot of banks are our members actually, and almost all the ones that are participating in this program are as well. And we try to get information directly from them, but I think they're all kind of trying to figure out this new process. There's been some glitches, if you will. One of those is the fact that the Small Business Administration is required to actually administer all of these loans, and they do it through a single portal. And so that one portal is overwhelmed. And so, it's a brand new program. They are trying very hard to make sure small businesses get those funds as quickly as they can. And because of that time frame, obviously we're going to have a little lag here. But, like you said, David, we have heard that Congress is looking to add potentially up to $250 billion. That could grow. We'll see, because it is a first come, first served basis program. And what we heard from the Small Business Administration is those funds will likely run out by the end of this week. The initial tranche of about $350 billion.
No, that's really good to hear. Definitely essential. One of the questions, we just got a question in, it's not really a question, more of a statement. It says that the governor is using the word closed for certain businesses, and it says, is there a way to advocate him to use the term restricting how business is done, opposed to saying the word close? And I did not listen to the governor's talk the other night, so I'm not quite sure if he's using the word close, but I didn't know if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, happy to. So the fine print is in his executive orders, which tend to be like a minimum of 8 pages. And so I actually used to work in the governor's office for many years. I was worked there for about 12 years in the legal shop. And so I kind of understand, all the little legalese that's in there. And honestly, he is not, the way that they word it is they say a business shall be closed to non-employees and for public, for the public to enter. And so they don't actually say close, right? So they're very careful in how they word that. Now, how it's messaged to the public obviously can be a little bit different. And I don't know if he's gone so far as to say they shall be closed, because he's, I think, trying to be as business friendly as he can right now. But we work with his office every single day, and we feel like they're doing an excellent job right now of trying to draw that fine line of keeping businesses open in the best way that they can, whether you're non-essential or essential. And also, obviously, making sure that we are practicing social distancing.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you for letting us know that. Absolutely. I'm looking this way because Carolyn Donaldson just sent out that email that you were talking about. So where it really breaks down.
Oh, good.
Talks a little bit about the law enforcement. We'll definitely get that posted. But talks about law enforcement officers should continue to, and then it explains what their Our police chief in Greer reached out to the chamber last night, and he said that he's getting questions. So we're going to actually do a chamber live event with him. If we can't get him in this week, we'll get him in on Monday to kind of explain what that means as well. He doesn't want fear to overcome people that are actually out doing something. He just wants them to understand that they're there to serve and protect. So I appreciate it. We appreciate what the governor's doing. We appreciate what the chamber's doing for the communication. It's been incredible, and again, we'll continue to send out our information that we're receiving from the chamber to our membership as well. And we just have been getting a couple questions in, and these are things that I can probably answer on the side. But one is, can we get the statistics that you mentioned earlier in an email? So if you have those for the survey, if there's a way to get those out, we'd appreciate that. Okay.
Absolutely.
Very good. Well, Swati, thank you so much for taking time today. And thank you so much for all that you're doing for the business community. We really appreciate it. And if I get any more follow-up questions, I'll definitely send them out your way.
Well, and thank you, David, for giving us the opportunity. Thank you for all you're doing. This is a great program that you've got, and it's wonderful that you are inviting your law enforcement and all of these different types of guests to your program, because I know we get these questions all the time. So the more opportunities for communication and information like this, the better off. So thanks, David.
Well, great. Well, you stay safe, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll stop.